Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello in the future if you're watching this on demand. Thank you guys for joining us for today's very special webinar. I know that you guys aren't here to hear from us. We have a great group of speakers that are in the background that we'll be bringing in shortly, but we do want to go over some housekeeping items. We'd love to keep this as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions for us, please submit them below using the Ask a Questions tab, and we'll do our best to answer all of your questions live today. In addition, leave us feedback. Let us know how we did, how we're doing, or what you'd like to hear at future events by hitting the Rate This tab also below the presentation screen. We do take your comments to heart, and we do cater our webinars to the things that you guys are asking for through the Rate This tab. Without further ado, I'll introduce today's speakers. First off with our MC, introducing Alex. Hey, Alex.
Hey, what's up, AJ? Thanks for doing all the hard work of getting us here together. That's you're the real hero. We just get to come in and present. So, but yeah, thanks. We could go ahead a slide, Chris, or maybe I can click the button. I'll let you click it so we don't go forward like 8 slides. Maybe I will try it. There it goes. Sweet. Disclaimer, none of us here except for Chris, I guess maybe, which we'll come to see, can make product commitments. So if Chris says it, it's probably true. If Deshaun or I say anything, don't trust it. It's shaky at best. So yeah, we can go to the next slide. Cool. This is the team. I'll introduce myself. I just get to play an MC today. I'm a solutions architect. I work primarily with PubSec customers. I spend a lot of time in the DoD right now. And my role in today's conversation with you all is just to try to have some empathy to your use cases and kind of be your voice. You obviously have a voice too. We love your questions and comments, but I'm stoked that I get to be here today with Chris, Deshaun, Adib. Apparently, like we just, he's working on some great features that I'm thinking Chris will talk about. He just couldn't get away. So he's not going to be here, but he'll be here in spirit when we speak to some of the upcoming commercial extensions and things like that, which I'm excited to hear more about. So, but Chris, I want to kick it over to you.
All right, thank you. So first thing I'm going to talk about just very quickly, some of you may or may not be familiar with Spring, so I'm just going to go over a quick Spring basics. So Spring is one of the most popular frameworks for doing web applications and all kinds of integration applications around the world and in the enterprise. We have a lot of different companies that use Spring in their applications. It is an open source framework, and ultimately, you're adding libraries to your application to ease the development process and do integrations with other tools and platforms. So you can see here that the list goes into multiple verticals, and including in the public sector, we see a lot of use of Spring. Now, the number of projects is 50 plus projects under the Spring umbrella just maintained, and most of those folks that are contributors to Spring itself actually work here at Broadcom. And we also support a lot of Tomcat as well. So just to let you know, we have a huge investment in how the open source is moving forward. Now, the ecosystem is also very strong. So along with being able to have the ability in our applications, have that dependency injection, all the patterns that Spring open source supports, we also have a number of integrations out of the box that you get for free with some basic configuration. And so we have all of these partnerships also with these ecosystem partners, and they are able to help us to make sure that those integrations are always working no matter where you're using them. Now I'm going to hand it back over to Alex really quick. Go ahead.
That was awesome. Thanks for kicking it over to me. And I think just to double click, you can stay here on this slide, but I think I wanted us to start with what is Spring? Because some of you walking this webinar might have, I don't know, you were you saw, updates in public sector and you were like, let's go. And I think it's important to say hey, today we're going to talk about Spring. What is it? Why does it matter? And I think just to my naive brain, and make sure I got this right, nobody except for maybe Deshaun is building, stitching together, soldering the actual bits together of their computers or their servers in their room. That's probably not how anybody in an enterprise scale does it nowadays. You buy a server from somebody or you buy it from a cloud, right? And you rent somebody else's. So you actually get that physical compute and it goes up, right? Not very many people are actually building the bare bones of how you like run operating systems on top of computers. And that layer keeps going up. And eventually you get to like the application developer space with stuff like Spring. And you're like, well, again, most app developers aren't writing the code for how do I take in some, HTTP layer 7 traffic from the internet, right? Like it's just not business value add. Like those types of abstractions are not things we want every developer to focus on. Enter Spring, right? Like it's an open source framework that has a gajillion of plugins, like you just showed me. Libraries is probably a better word than plugins, that you can plop into your apps to connect with databases and do like web requests. And I mean, the list is on and on and on. AI, I mean, it just goes and goes and goes. Is that like a relatively succinct summary of kind of like what it is and kind of what we're going to talk about today? We're going to dive into how VMware plays in that Spring space. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Great. I've been paying attention. Don't you worry. Okay, so the problem then, why do we even need to talk about Spring? Why can't I just use Spring and just boom, like I'm off to the races in my public sector org? Why do I need help? And I think it's important to lay out a little journey for you all that I think I see a lot of our customers going on. And Dushan or Chris, feel free to hop in as you see fit. But I think everything starts here, right? And I think many of our orgs in public sector, they have this today, whether it be a mainframe or just a big old fat VM or heck, a big old fat container, right? There's no limit on what a big monolith might look like today. You have one single thing that has been running your mission or serving your constituents for a long time. It's kind of this big blob that you go in and you like, go into it and make some updates and you're like, please don't break, please don't break, please don't break. And you walk out. But from the top perspective, our customers are like, hey, let's move faster. We even see executive orders down at the bottom about, hey, we need to be able to serve our constituents more rapidly. We saw that with the customer experience executive order. And we also see the executive order on improving the nation's cybersecurity. We need to get better at staying rapidly up to date and current with what's out in the actual ecosystem so we can stay patched, ready to go, right? So if we go to the next slide, like let's say, okay, we move past that first little hump and we get into like day one, right? And you're like, look at me, right? I have a single team. I built this like platform of sorts. It doesn't really matter what that is. It could be like VMware Cloud Foundation. It could be some cloud abstraction. Could be some like Tanzu, whatever. It doesn't matter, but a platform. I've stigged it. Meaning I've provided the security technical implementation guides. I've done the security requirements guides. I've done the FIPS, whatever FIPS stands for, Federal Information Processing something. I'm using the right ciphers. I've done all my hard work on my platform. And I've got this nice Spring little app that's running here. It's taking in web traffic. It's talking to a database, that little Postgres. And everything is good, right? I've started to break up this big monolith into smaller pieces that I can update. And, I put that contract on the street. We're going, life is good. And I have this single team, we're crushing it. But I need more, right? Like that almost is never fully sufficient. So let's go on to the next little block. Because we need more, right? I need more contractors or more internal govies, and I need more capability. So I start to bring in more products, right? I have more Spring apps now. I might be integrating other languages like Python or C#, or my whole portfolio is increasing. I need to have consolidated API access up front, and I need to have an aggregated data layer so I can get to things like my Postgres and my other data services. I still have the same security requirements, just more teams, more surface area that I have to manage, and I have to know how to help these teams stay up to date. Not tricky, right? And it's still not done. Our customers are still like, I actually want more. Like just because you've broken up the monolith and you're moving faster, life is grand. Let's go to the last little bit here.
Well, I did want to say,
please.
When we're here, one of the interesting things is you're putting in layers of security as well, kind of proxies in between you and applications that may or may not be as secure as you'd like them to be at the time. So you're trying to put in controls and layers that can help you with keeping that security posture. It's a very good movement and I guess a step towards the ultimate. And here we go.
Absolutely. I mean, and lastly, everybody is aware of it today. There's this, we want to move faster with the new large language model tooling. Heck, we even want to do just traditional machine learning and start to actually make better predictions for what our users might want and how to best serve them. And everyone that's watching this is probably like, man, I wish I was at day like 2, let alone day X, right? These are very difficult to help achieve, to get through every one of these steps. And I don't want to bury the lead, but like if we go to the next slide, like we are literally, this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about these problems and how we help through Spring get through this journey. And, you know, the agenda, and Chris, I'll actually let you talk to this because I think you and Deshaun are really going to drive the party here.
Yeah, so we're kind of going to take you through that whole model of how can we get to that next level of secure and also changeable environment. And so one of the things that we're going to talk about first is our enterprise Spring offering. So what goes beyond the open source? What do we have today to help you with maybe supporting your existing applications and maybe in modern or lower versions of Spring OSS releases? And then keeping that business continuity, helping you get to upgrades and to the most modern pieces so you can take advantage of what we just described in the environment. And then also talk about API security, putting in those layers of control along with data processing. How can you do that in a very configurable and manageable way across your architecture and all your data sources? And then, of course, we're going to talk about artificial intelligence, since this is something that has come out and really become a big part of the market today. So where I'm going to start is Tanzu Spring Runtime. So today we have a offering called Tanzu Spring Runtime from Broadcom. And what this includes is quite a bit underneath the covers. The first thing that it has is enterprise support. Now we have 50 plus open source projects underneath the Spring umbrella. And we also have our own distribution of OpenJDK that we work to deliver on a regular basis, making sure we're always up to date with the new versions. Also, we have support for Apache Tomcat. We got 3 of the main contributors to Tomcat working here at Broadcom as well on the Spring team. And John, I'm sorry, can you please not share your screen? Not sure how that's happening, but somehow it keeps flipping back and forth. All right, thank you. So then we also have something called Spring Enterprise Subscription. And what this is an artifact repository. If you're familiar with Maven and Gradle, they usually get their dependencies from an artifact repository. And we have our own commercial version of that. So we can give you some of our commercial releases of open source projects that are no longer under OSS support, but we're proactively creating new releases for them and patches so that for those customers that need a little bit more time to upgrade to the new versions of Spring projects, they have that time and they can upgrade at their own pace. Also in this enterprise subscription artifact repo, we have some new offerings. So we'll talk about some of those today, including a library to manage governance and compliance in all of your applications. And then you have access to binary downloads. So the OpenJDK that we just talked about, we have a distribution of that. We also have Tomcat and something called TC Server. We have a lot of customers who have many Tomcat instances running across their architecture, and we have TC Server to help manage the configuration across all of those. And then we have some enterprise components. So if you've ever used Spring Cloud, we have our Spring Cloud Config Server, Spring Cloud Eureka Service Registry, and then we also have a Spring Cloud Gateway. All of these are available as components that you can use, and we've built them ourselves rather than you downloading the library, creating a new application and maintaining it yourself. We've done that and also included a lot of security, scale, all kinds of things that you may need in order to run those in a production environment.
And Chris, just to briefly summarize for my not as smart brain as yours, I think I'm going to steal Deshaun's quote. I mean, really, a lot of this is you're almost certainly using Java, or if not Spring. Like a lot of orgs, most orgs have Spring penetration. I haven't ran into any yet that don't. You probably want to make sure you're getting the latest and greatest. And like we said, when things get over time, it can be hard to keep everything up to date. That's what we're here to help you do. But Deshaun's line that I love to steal is this one. Maybe I'm about to steal your thunder. I'm gonna let you do it, so I don't steal it from you.
Well, no, go ahead. Pretty much what I'm talking about here is we have all these projects, and like you said, we can't keep upgraded all the time. And so a lot of the companies that we work with may have applications that are either in non-active development or maybe just behind because of reasons during the development of it. And so what we provide is this enterprise support. This allows you to keep on a current version that your application is running. Maybe you're running on Spring Boot 2.7 and Spring Framework 5.3. We can, even though those are out of open source support currently, you can actually work with us and we will support and create new patch releases that resolve CVEs and handle any bugs that may be within the code base during that commercial support period. And what that looks like is actually we have a service level objective to handle things like high severity and also critical severity issues like CVEs, and be able to make sure that we get those out as soon as possible, or at least we give a response to them. And we also, by the way, from a Spring team, we get to work with the security community. So many times we learn about things before anyone else out in the public does. And so we're constantly working towards making sure that anything that they find, we're able to handle ourselves before it gets out in the public. Now, the artifact repository, this is a place where those commercial releases can be downloaded from. They are actually based upon all these different projects on spring.io. So if you're spring.io and you look at your project, Spring Boot being one of them, there are many other projects listed there with their own support tab. You'll see that there's a green bar and a yellow bar. And if you ever want to check whether or not your application is meeting the particular OSS support period, or if it's no longer under support and you don't have Tanzu Spring Runtime, then you would be able to know which projects are at risk. So those ones that are in green currently, 3.1 and 3.2, those are currently under OSS support. The ones in yellow, 2.7 and 3.0, those are now under commercial only support. And those would be where you would only get patch releases through this enterprise subscription artifact repo. Now, how does that work? Many organizations, they already have an internal artifact repository, either based on Artifactory or Nexus. And they usually are syncing their artifacts from other locations. And maybe in a highly regulated, you're probably doing this in a very safe way. You're trying to make sure that you only do what is needed and verify each step in terms of what you sync from those other repositories. Now, we have access to our Spring Enterprise subscription using a token. You generate that on our Artifactory, and then you're able to then sync those artifacts. And then from a developer point of view, they never have to know that you got those artifacts from some other artifact repository. They're always using your internal artifact repository and not going over the internet to get their builds done. And so this is the idea here, is that we make this available to you. You can still use those, sync the artifacts from Maven Central, which is kind of the public repository for all Java projects, open source projects. And then you also can sync ours alongside those and get the commercial releases as well. Now, we also want to talk about business continuity. And one of the things that you find here is that we do lag behind on these versions. And I suspect there's somebody in the audience today that probably has something older than Spring Boot 2.7 running in their environment. And they may know about that already. And so one of the things that we want to talk about is, okay, why would you upgrade? What are the things that you can get? First off, you're on a supported version. You also make sure that you don't have CVEs that may be known in the public within your applications. And that could be exploited potentially by bad actors. On top of that, with Spring Boot 3, we had a lot of focus on faster startup times, being able to scale to zero, more secure apps, definitely on the infrastructure utilization, trying to reduce that consumption. And one of the other main things is developer experience. We wanted to make sure that was a focus for Spring Boot 3 and Spring Framework 6. Now, some of the ways that we did this is through the memory footprint comparison between old versions and new versions. You see that using things like Spring Native, where you use Graal VM underneath the covers, this is actually compiling down to a binary. And your startup is actually much faster since you're not using the Java runtime anymore. You're actually running the application directly from a binary. And it actually also is very fast, or reduction in memory is quite extensive. Now, that's compared to some of the heap size that you'd see with the other approaches, okay, under load. So this is something that you now have access to in Spring, and you can take advantage of if needed. We also, in Spring Boot 3.3, which is coming in May, we're going to have an SBOM output. And so for those that are very interested in kind of looking at the details of their applications and what is actually contained in them, so you can start to figure out what is under support, what's not under support, and also meet some of the regulatory guidelines that are coming, that the SBOM output will help you with that. And it'll come in things like Cyclone DX format and such. And we also have a ton of dev experience features and support coming up for app CDS. One of the interesting things with CDS is without even changing your app, whereas with Spring Native, you actually have to make sure it can compile down, since it's using AOT down to a native binary. With CDS, you don't have to do that. It'll actually help you with memory allocation and startup time without any changes to your app, except for how you explode it into a exploded jar path. Now, what we're going to do here, though, is I'm going to talk to you, hand it over to Deshaun. Deshaun's going to go over and show you how we can help you upgrade your Spring applications from an old version, Boot 2.6 to 3.2. So take it away, Deshaun.
You are super muted, but there you are.
Let's go.
You're live.
Hello, I'm Deshaun. I am a Spring developer advocate. I love my job, and I'm lucky to work with orgs just like yours. One of the things is we want you to be in the green. I want everybody here wants you to be in the green. And sometimes it might feel like that's a daunting task. And I'm going to show you sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a lot easier than you think. So let's jump into this demo. And what we're going to do here is we are going to start with Java 8. We're going to clone a Spring Boot 2.6 repository. So that's our starting line. We're starting with something that's Spring Boot 2.6.0, and we're just going to build it. It's going to run. The great thing about Java is, yeah, it's been around, and I can run this code still. It still works. So it's up, it's running. I do a little health check here, and we're good. It's in production. It's running. It's healthy, and I captured a little number here. It's 367.5 megabytes. That's not good enough for us. We want you to be in the green. So what we're going to do, I'm going to show you a little cheat code. This is part of the open rewrite framework. We're going to run a nested set of recipes that knows how to upgrade my application. This is a fairly new technology. Open rewrite is a great framework. And it's Java code that knows how to go into my code, into my manifest, and update the application. And it can go as far back as Spring Boot 1.5 to get some of the main things. Not everything is going to update this easy, but a lot of your code can. So now we're on the latest and greatest. I can switch to Java 21, and we're going to run it again. The exact same code that's now running here, Spring Boot 3.2.5, the latest and greatest. It's still up and running. It's still healthy. We're in great shape. We're more secure. Look at this. We're using less infrastructure. This is great. This brings me joy. We're patched. We're more performant. We're using less infrastructure. It's costing us less money. This is great. But there's more with Spring Boot 3 and Spring Framework 6. We can do this AOT processing, ahead of time processing. This is one of my favorite features, probably my absolute favorite feature, because I don't have a lot of money. I've got Raspberry Pi money. I don't have cloud money. I have Raspberry Pi money. So my platform happens to be made of duct tape, Bash, and Raspberry Pis. This is going to allow me to deliver more applications on my platform without having to spend more money. Just by upgrading, I can do this. So what's happening right now, it's analyzing all of my code. It's throwing away the dependencies that I don't need. All the code that I can't get to, it ignores, and it's optimizing it for the platform that I'm running on. And this is ARM64. This is Apple Silicon and ARM64. So we're in good shape. It's going to take a little bit of time. This is one of the trade-offs, but this ahead of time processing is going to give me huge returns. But in order to do that, I've got to be on at least Spring Framework 6 and at least Spring Boot 3. So with that trade-off, it'll take about 1 minute and 6 seconds. Let's take a guess. I've done it a few times. With that trade-off, though, I get massive benefits: faster startup time, smaller footprint, smaller containers that I'm taking to my Raspberry Pis. We're in good
And
shape.
I mean, like you said, it goes wherever. Like you're compiling for
Yep.
ARM here, but this pre-compile is a one. But here we are. It's done.
A minute 11 seconds. But this is one of the trade-offs, right? Bytecode, write once, run anywhere. This is optimized for my platform. It's still Spring Boot 3.2.5. It's still Java. It's still healthy. Fantastic. But what did we get? We got a much smaller footprint. We got a much faster startup time. So let's take a look. Let's do a little summary here. If you come to my house for dinner and you leave hungry, that's your fault. We're here to answer your questions. If you're joining us live, get your questions in. Don't leave hungry. Here's the results. Spring Boot 2.6 with Java 8. I started up 1.057. I had 367.5 megabytes. I'll let you look at the numbers. All I did was upgrade to the latest, greatest version of Spring Boot and to Java 21. I got a 41% savings on my infrastructure. So maybe if you could get even a 25% savings on your infrastructure, you might get a pat on the back. You might get an email signed. But look at this. If you can upgrade first and then find use cases where you can get a native image, get value, 94% faster startup time, 78% savings on my infrastructure. This is exciting. This is going to run on my Raspberry Pi, and I'm excited about that. So if you'd like to,
this is insane.
It's insane. It's amazing. I'm going to quote another friend of mine, Josh Long. Java keeps outperforming the competition, and we're all winners. This is wonderful. So thanks. I'll pass it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Deshaun.
I can't see that demo enough. I just have to say it. I just there is no limit in it. And I think one thing, just before we go into the next step, Chris, one comment that, I wanted to quote Deshaun earlier, but, Chris talked about that whole supported runtime workflow, and that is awesome. And I think a lot of Deshaun comes in, he does this great workflow. Look at all the money, the space, the time you can save here. And I think there's it can be a bit of a gap, at least in my experience. We're hey, I've got 50 teams, and they don't know. What if I run that magic script and it doesn't just succeed? Well, you can use Spring App Advisor, but also a part of the support you get is you can actually ask questions. Deshaun commonly will say if you're on Stack Overflow looking up your Spring questions, you're probably not doing it right. We're here to help, and we can help you get to where you need to go through so many avenues. But I think that's a segue here for you, Chris, to talk about one of those avenues.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the things that you'll see in Deshaun's talk is there was an upgrade, right? You upgrade from 2.6 to 3.2, and that's pretty impressive. And for some applications, you can actually use the open source, open rewrite projects. What we've also found, though, is that many times you want to maybe do a little safer than doing a full upgrade all at once, and kind of check things out along the way. You also may be learning what is new as you go along on that upgrade process. And so we have Spring Application Advisor that helps you do continuous upgrades, not only on one project, but across your entire Spring estate. And what we look at here is why are we doing this? What we've seen recently is that there's actually an impact to security shifting left. A lot of times security teams are running vulnerability scanners, and we've seen that this become more prolific in recent years as you've seen more bad actors and different situations with organizations dealing with security concerns. And this is actually impacting the development teams. They're now having this unplanned work coming in on a frequent basis, and they have to kind of investigate and remediate some of this application code potentially, or just identify this doesn't affect us. But either way, it comes in as unplanned work and is a distraction. And then engineering leadership in a lot of these organizations, they're actually having to deal with this uncertainty and delays across all of their teams. And so this may actually impact other things in terms of getting to market fast. So what we have done here is we believe that rather than thinking about CVEs specifically being some you need to investigate one by one, a lot of times if you're using these open source projects, and especially Spring, we are doing our due diligence on a regular basis to keep things up to date and assess and investigate and then remediate these issues, even before sometimes you even know that it's an issue. And so what we want to enable is for your application portfolio to be automatically updated with dependencies and code upgrades. So one of the things that Deshaun showed there, it wasn't just upgrading the dependencies, like you might do with a dependabot or something like that. It's actually going and making code changes, manipulating the code to use the new patterns that might be in the next version of the Spring project. And then we also want to reduce the frequency and time to resolution of those security vulnerabilities. And the idea there is if you're always being upgraded and we're creating pull requests or merge requests into your code base incrementally, keeping you up to date every time there's a new project change, then you're always keeping ahead of the issues that are coming with those security vulnerabilities. You're always getting the best knowledge from the Spring team at the time. And so kind of an analysis across the board, you do see a lot of other tools in this space. But one of the things that we want to talk about with Application Advisor is that we go beyond what a lot of these tools do to cover all the bases. So one of them is upgrading the Spring and Java APIs. And so we do a little bit more than what is out in the open source today. The recipe coverage currently is fairly low, and we're going to have much more coverage for our applications out there in the wild. And so we're providing that for all of your Spring projects and all the changes that have been made over time for those. We'll also do vulnerability analysis, obviously, but what we really focus on is upgrading multiple repositories at scale. So if you have 100 repos, you should be able to use our tool in your environment and be able to create those pull requests and merge requests on all of them using a single tool, App Advisor. And then we do continuous and incremental upgrades. And I think that incremental is very important. We actually create a plan, an upgrade plan for each one of these that you can actually see and kind of identify with and say, okay, here's where we want to get to the next step. And then maybe we release and also learn about what those changes, how they might impact our code and the behavior that's in them. And so we do that incremental upgrade as well through a plan. And that plan looks a lot like this, where you actually have these steps that are on the upgrade from boot 3.15 to Spring Boot, from Spring Boot 2.3. And you'll see that each step will create a new pull request that you can review, make sure that you are okay with those changes, and maybe even learn about what those changes may do underneath the covers, and learn along the way.
I think, Chris, if I may, like really quick on that slide, I just like one thing that's unique maybe to this sector in particular is the fact that, every time that we make a change to any of our code bases, like that is money, right? That's not unique here. Everybody has to pay developers or whatever. But in the public sector in particular, like, there's typically like lengthy contracts that have to go out that say these are the 5 to 6, 7, 800,000 lines of things you have to do as accordance with it. And if you look at the code here that it's updating, it's changing where this like path variable owner ID is supposed to be in a new version of Spring. Like that is not something I want humans to have to worry about. Like it is directly below the value line. I just want this to automatically happen. And I want you all to spend all of your time that I'm paying my contractors or my government teams to focus on. I want you focused on business logic. I want you focused on how are we serving our constituents better? How can I leverage the new APIs, the new things that we haven't even had time to look at because we've been so focused on just getting to current. And I promise you, nothing everything is more cost effective than paying humans one by one to do this work. So like the cost benefit is just, I'm very excited for this, if not obvious.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the other things I want to mention here is that with Tanzu Spring Runtime, you get Application Advisor as it comes out in the market. Just to let you know, this is not generally available yet, but it's coming fairly soon. I just say that out loud a little bit. And you
heard it. Chris said fairly soon. Write it down. He's the only one that can say that.
Yeah. So Application Advisor, one of the things that we want to make sure of is that we don't only tell you what the problems are or even give you a library update in the commercial releases or in our open source, but we also want to help you upgrade automatically without your teams having to continually think about this upgrade process, as Alex was pointing to. Now, what are some of the things that we are targeting as outcomes for all of this? Of course, easing your compliance, right? You're keeping up on the OSS projects, making sure you're always in a supported version, or in the long-term support, you can actually make sure that you're upgraded to the most recent versions and the commercial releases that are available for those. Also, continuous security, making sure that you're always getting reduction in security vulnerabilities that may be impacting your application infrastructure. And then developer productivity. Let's not get developer toil on all of these investigations and figuring out what's really going on underneath the covers and that technical debt and delays that happen when you don't upgrade to the newest version of Spring. Now, you also get these dashboards so you can get that overall view of what you need to see, and that dashboard can help you understand what your risk profile is across your portfolio. And how it works underneath the covers, this actually integrates into your continuous integration runners. So if you're using Jenkins or GitHub Actions or something else underneath the covers, you can use this. And the idea here is it's a command line that you run, and you also have a server running for your App Advisor tool, and it's able to generate the upgrade plan, apply the next step in the upgrade plan, and then for you to then look at the pull requests and then run it back through your continuous integration pipeline again. So the idea here is you can use this anywhere, and then the information gets populated up into those dashboards, and you're able to see your progress. Are you getting better? Now, I've talked about upgrades here and with Deshaun and Alex, but I think the next step is, okay, how else can we help? And we have a new library extension I want to talk about for Spring Boot. And we provide this through our commercial repo as well. And the idea here is we want to help you with audits and also not getting some of that technical debt that you might get over time where you may, in between audits, create some different code that may not meet the audit criteria. And so what we've provided is a new library I'm going to do a quick demo of, and it covers all of these things, right? We're working towards FIPS 140-3. A lot of times there's some, the same kind of rule can pass for both, multiple of these regulatory compliance standards. And so we are working through that in our library. And so you'll see here some of the things that we cover.
And if I may, Chris, like that slide more or less said a bunch of security jibber jabber that I don't want to have to worry about. Like, I mean, I mean that genuinely. Like, I'm a developer. Like, I don't want to think about anything that is actually said on this slide. I don't want to do encryption. I don't want to touch encryption. I don't want to think about what ciphers I'm using. I just want it to work and be compliant. Pretty please. And that's basically what you're saying here is yes, for all the known places that we can think of how you're making external connections, namely, we've done work to integrate all of that. So out of the box, it comes through with the right, various standards for encryption and things like that. So did I summarize it correctly?
Yeah, and not only that, as an auditors coming in, they're going to have a spreadsheet and look at every single application. We don't want every team impacted by this investigation and filling out the spreadsheet. They should be able to get a lot of this information out of the box using this new library and be able to cross off those rows and say, yes, we're compliant in those cases.
Well, don't tempt me with a good time. Let's see it. I'm here.
Sounds good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and sorry, the entire screen here. All right, and of course I automatically showed the screen a little bit differently.
Matrix, no worries. We're out of it.
One of the things you can do, once you have access to the Spring Enterprise Subscription Artifact repo, you have this new governance starter. And the governance starter can be added to your application with this simple dependency. And what it will do is it will create a new actuator endpoint. And that actuator endpoint actually gives you information about your application as it's bootstrapping, starting up. Now, some of the details in here will actually tell you what you're running underneath the covers. You may be running Netty or Tomcat as the runtime underneath your Spring Boot application. It will also tell you which ports are currently open. And in this case, I only have 8443 and 9443. I've got both of them open. And then within those, it'll tell you what are the enabled ciphers. And this is helpful in order for your audits to provide that information back. Not only this, though, besides having the information about what your TLS configuration currently is, we also look at your client TLS. Though when you're creating new clients to talk to outside your application, what are the ways that you have been, you can validate those that are using the proper TLS configuration. And then we have a section on security providers. And so we can make sure that you have a bouncy castle FIPS provider and that you're not just using the generic ciphers and providers for your security TLS configurations. On top of that, we also have rules that we need to test against. And so we have these tests that automatically run before startup or during startup, and they will have different configuration IDs. You can actually create your own custom governance policies and have those run as rules as well. So we have extendability in this library, but we also have our own built-in ones. And for instance, application must use TLS and what standard that is part of, a description of it, and also a URL to learn more. And we do this for each one of the different levels of TLS configuration, like 1.2 and 1.3 must be used. We go down to cipher suites that are NIST approved. We have RSA key size, etc. So you can see here, there are quite a few tests actually underneath the covers. And in fact, we run 16 different tests here. One of those was a custom test, so 15 of them out of the box. And with those, you can actually get an overall view of the results. So we provide this out of the box using this new library. And kind of the idea here is that we want to make sure that you have the information you need to conduct your audits. Okay. And you can now build this into your Spring Boot applications, run across all of your projects.
And just to be clear, Chris, was it actually just that one line? Like, is that really all you added? Was you imported the package? Like, there's no smoke and mirrors there.
There's no smoke and mirrors. We added the one line, and it's able to interrogate a Spring Boot application that is currently starting up.
I mean, I just, I hear a lot from our customers. I want to avoid lock-in, and I try to always tell people, like, every decision is lock-in. It's unavoidable. Any time you make a choice, you're now going down a path, hopefully for good. It's just one of the things I'm most excited about with what you just showed is, hey, like, you can write your own FIPS, whatever you want to do, right? Like, you certainly can. There's absolutely nothing that stops you from doing that. But if you've already got the support, it's just there. Just use it. Like, go forth and prosper. Like, and this, to my mind, is the exact value prop that we want to be in. It's added functionality. You're still riding the upstream wave of Spring. You're still riding that right gravy train that's highly portable, built on open source, widely known, but we've just got some niceties that make your life even better. And I think that's pretty sweet.
Very cool. Yeah, I think I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. We have a little bit more content than probably fit in the time frame, and I want to make sure we get to Deshaun's demo. So we're going to make sure we get there. So I'm going to go over just one other area that I think is very important. We talked about the layers that you start to add into your architecture, and one of those is API security. I think this is super important for all of your contractors, all of your organizations that are trying to develop apps faster. You want to be able to have some guardrails around them. And so the API gateway in this pattern, this is a typical Spring Cloud architecture. You might have service registry to help with service discovery across microservices internally. And then you have config server to give your runtime configuration in the environment rather than having it in your code base statically written. And then you also have the API gateway, which is kind of your front door to the architecture. We don't want to expose every single service out to the wild and the public and all the devices that might connect to them. We want to have some kind of control center that can kind of filter that request traffic, and that's the API gateway. It has routing rules, and one of the things that we provide is Enterprise Spring Cloud Gateway. This goes beyond what is in the open source project, which is a library that you would put into a Spring Boot app and create a new API gateway with. We actually have some things built in out of the box that go beyond what's in there. You have the OSS filters that are available and predicates that are available inside of the open source project, but we also have some commercial filters for things like single sign-on, RBAC, scopes, client certificates, and so on and so forth. There's quite a bit of commercial features that we have on top of the OSS. Not only that, we integrate Spring Security, Spring Session to help you with HA configuration, and even Redis integration so that you can automatically go across multiple availability zones and have an active-active or active-passive kind of configuration. And we also have support for many different patterns that maybe you have to deal with, such as internal API sharing. We found that much more of the APIs are not exposed outwardly to your consumers outside the organization, but many times there's APIs that everybody's using internally. And it's the way that we're doing data exchanges today. And so we want to make sure that you have a tool that in between those different groups that they're able to have an API gateway that's consistent and allows for the right interactions. You also may need to do application modernization. Many times you'll put an API gateway in front of a monolith, and then over time try to slice out a bit of data and application code into smaller services over time so they can be actually used in ways that they can't be used today in the monolith. And then external API consumer access. Obviously, there is external API access that you need to enable. You can do that by having layers of API gateways and make sure that you only put out and rate limit and add all the things, usage data collection, add all of that into the mix. We also have integration with monitoring tools and such, and you can also have third-party services served through that same API gateway. And I do want to talk, we also integrate with many observability tools. We have Prometheus and Grafana. You also can do with Tanzu observability if you're using that. All of that's integrated and automatic dashboards created for you. Okay. Along with that, we have an API portal. So if you do expose those APIs, you can actually have those available for any consumers to look at the APIs, try them out, be able to see whether or not they'll meet their needs. And this portal will have many API groups available. You go down and click in and you're able to see a view that you can then try out those APIs. And then we also have API key management. With Spring Cloud Gateway, Enterprise Spring Cloud Gateway and API Portal. In API Portal, you have a self-service generation of the key that also works alongside through secret management that then this Spring Cloud Gateway instances can validate those keys on the entry point. And these aren't necessarily security tokens, but they are a way for you to identify who is accessing your APIs, and then potentially through a management dashboard, you even revoke them if maybe they're using naively or maybe as a bad actor. Okay. Now, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because I really want to get to Deshaun's talk. And so what we're going to go to is Spring AI. And if you don't know, Spring AI is an open source project that is currently within our, currently getting close to GA. We're working on it and make sure you have the integrations you need in the AI environment and be able to leverage them as a Spring developer. So Deshaun, hand it off to you.
Man, this is exciting. And one of the things, it's like, imagine that you just were given this AI or database technology. Somebody just says, hey, databases are a new cool thing, and this is how we're going to handle all of our data. Imagine that you're at that point in time where databases are just being introduced. And imagine you're on the Spring team. And what the Spring team did was they created this Spring data project so that we could switch between those different databases with ease and joy and not get stressed out. They did the same thing for us with Spring AI. Spring AI has been out for a while. It's wildly popular. It's still not yet GA, but it's already in heavy use. If you pay attention to the GitHub repos and the number of models that keep on coming out, it seems like every day there's a new model that's the new king of GPT. And it's amazing, but sometimes it's hard to keep up. The project's been out. It's definitely worth taking a spin, and it's ready for you to use today. Maybe you're familiar with start.spring.io, the initializer. We have all of these dependencies. I've gone through and selected a few for a demo. I'm going to use OpenAI. Maybe you've heard of OpenAI. I grabbed Spring Web so I could have a controller, and of course the Spring Boot actuator because I want it to go to production. I want it to be production ready. So I've done that, and here's what my project looks like. I have all my dependencies. You get that from here. I can explore. I can see everything I'm getting. It's going to look very similar to the project that I already have running. Start.spring.io is a great place to begin. Here's my project. I've stood it up. I've made it just really easy. All of my dependencies are there. OpenAI. I've given it some credentials. We just talked about secret management. This is the way I'm doing it. I'm pulling down that API key from my secret store so that I can speak with OpenAI, my friend and colleague, OpenAI. What I've done is mapping to the API. I've got my the questions and how things are going to be sent. And I said, hey, tell me a joke about updating software. That's the endpoint that we've got. So let's go ahead and run it. Let's see what it does. Of course, we're running Spring Boot 3.2.5, the latest and greatest. We're up and running. So now we're ready to talk to the AI. Let's jump over to a browser here. We're going to hit refresh. Okay, we're up and healthy. And let's hit that endpoint. I think I said AI simple. Why did the software developer break up with their partner? Because they needed to update their relationship status. AI. That's amazing. But in this case, I'm talking to OpenAI. Sometimes I don't want to send even my jokes. I don't want OpenAI to know all my jokes. Sometimes I want to have things local. I want to be a little bit more careful with the way that I'm using AI. Don't worry, we've got you covered. We've got a bunch of these models that you can run locally. One popular model is Ollama. I can run Ollama on my Raspberry Pis. Again, I don't have cloud money. I have Raspberry Pi money. And sometimes I care about my data. So I have another demo over here. Let's pull it in where I'm using Ollama. I'm running it locally. I can do the same things, but this case, I took it one step further. I'm going to use retrieval augmented generation. So I'm passing in my LinkedIn resume, but no reason. There's no reason there. Hey, here it is, my LinkedIn resume. And the question that I'm going to ask is like, hey, can we do something simple? Actually, let's just run it. We're running. It's there. Let's go see. I'm going to ask here, like, can you summarize Deshaun's experience? So I'm hitting my local version. This tied to my local Ollama. And let's see if it works. Fingers crossed. It's a demo. It should work. It's taking some time. My Raspberry Pi.
That Raspberry Pi money is here.
The Raspberry Pi money is spinning. And there it is. I have an answer. But I didn't send that information out. I used my PDF to feed the generation. So it's using the GPT model, but it's using my PDF to stuff that prompt, to give it more information to answer upon. And this is great. This is what you're going to be doing. And you can do it today with Spring AI.
And I think, Deshaun, that line 45 through 49 that you're showing there, if you've, I mean, heck, even all the way to 51, we'll show the whole thing.
We're
7 lines.
Yeah.
If you've made it this far in the talk and you weren't already aware of what Spring does, I think we talk about AI like it's this magical, mythical beast. In a lot of ways, it's not trivial, right? But this is Spring in a nutshell, let alone Spring AI. It is a few methods that have been written that allow you to take in this document, query it, pull it out, take those parameters, put them into the prompt, and push them out. Now, you don't have to know what any of those words mean, just to understand that that's a heck of a lot less than I imagined you thought it would be.
With a few lines of code. With a few lines of code, I can switch between all of these models. And each model has strengths and weaknesses. Each model can be optimized and tuned in different ways. Different models have different sizes. There's different features of each of these models, but we're all just getting started, right? It's this new time, and the Spring team has made it easy for us to ride along. We can go through this journey, again, making it easy to switch. Thank you, Spring team, and good luck, because now you've got a new tool to use.
Yeah, and I even want to go beyond that. One of the other things that I'm hearing from a lot of our customers is the importance of safety. We want to make sure that as we're adopting AI, that we have ways of adopting safety practices. And there's actually ways to integrate that into your code bases as well, to do evaluation of your prompts and responses. So something that you should definitely look into if you have any artificial intelligence projects that you're looking at today. All right, and with that, we did finish a little bit early. I wanted to make sure we had enough time, but I do want to have a little bit of shout out though. We go beyond having Tanzu Spring Runtime and even the Spring open source. And what we found is that we have a few other services that help you out along the way. One of the things that we have is Spring Consulting. And so you can always go and get some Spring Consulting from us. Like Deshaun had mentioned earlier, if you maybe have some more gnarly applications to upgrade, you can actually get that help from us. We've done a lot of upgrades in the past, and we've even helped migrate from other platforms or other frameworks over into Spring as well. So maybe something that isn't as well adopted, you may want to make it more modern. We also have something called Spring Academy, and just recently we had a Spring Academy Pro set of classes that you usually had to pay for. We've actually made those free now. So if you haven't checked out Spring Academy lately, please do. If you want to upscale your Spring developers in their knowledge and capabilities, Spring Academy is a great way to look at all the different projects, including Spring Boot and so Spring Security, etc., in order to get better at using those in your applications, and also meet the patterns that we recommend on the Spring team for using those libraries. Okay. And with that, I think we've come to the end. I just want to say thank you. And maybe I'll leave this other slide up for a minute. Is there any questions that we want to gather from the audience?
Right. If you come to my house for dinner, remember, if you don't eat,
you can use it.
Ask questions. We are here. We're at your service.
We did get one question. I know, Deshaun, you answered this via chat. Maybe we can ask it out loud, and
the question was, are the binaries statically compiled when compiled natively? The answer is yes. What are the performance improvements above and beyond the smaller binary size? For some workloads, the performance is actually going to be improved. It depends on the shape of your workload, but for some workloads, there is going to be a performance improvement. But yeah, your mileage may vary on those. But it's worth taking a shot. It's worth taking a run at it and doing the experiment, especially if you can, on top of saving significant amount of infrastructure size, container size. If you can get added performance on top of that.
I think one of the things that we see is that if you don't have a need for a lot of warm up and kind of JIT compiler support with the VM, then you're probably going to have comparable performance. And I think it's always one of those trade-offs that you have to make. Are you looking for high throughput? Maybe doing binary compilation is not the way to go in that case. But if you're looking for something where you're trying to reduce the infrastructure costs and see a big benefit, as Deshaun had shown, that may be the trade-off that you make, that you actually do that native compilation.
But the bottom line is here, right? We're all saying the same thing. We want you to be in the green. We want you to get the benefits of being on the latest and greatest. We want you to be able to take advantage of all the work that the Spring team has been doing for us. And you. We want you to be in the green. Get upgraded. We're here to help. There's tons of value in getting upgraded. We talked about performance, the security, and we only touched on the developer experience. One of the best things about Spring is it makes it easy and joyful to do development. We want you to
so easy. I can do it, Deshaun. That's I impress you every day when I somehow manage to code something. Heck, I'm even writing a Spring Academy guide right now with you. And if you know my background, I have no business being where I am. But thanks to this team, I feel like I learn a ton every day. And thank you all for taking your time to join us. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Deshaun, for joining, and AJ for setting it up. Michelle for herding us all, and John. Thanks everyone that participated in getting this together. Hit us up. There's an email to toptanzu.pubsec@broadcom.com, or find us in whatever channels feels good to you. We'd love to help you.
We would. We'd love to help you.
So thanks all. I think just one other last plug. Spring 1 this year is taking place at VMware Explore. That is at the end of August. Registration opens soon. We're still sitting out or still accepting proposals. So if you have a talk that you'd like to present, I think there's a link for spring1.io in the attachments tab here below. Click on there. It'll route you to the call for proposals, so you can submit a talk if you'd like to present at VMware Explore this year. So again, thank you all. Have a great week.
All right, thanks everyone.